Hi, this is Jen with Unchained Crochet. If you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to see more items and tutorials like this. Hi guys, this is Jen with Unchained Crochet. We are starting this series. Did the intro for this top already, the Wild Violets cardigan. You can wear yours closed, close up the front and the back, leave slits on the side, make it more of a tunic style, or you can leave it open as I'm going to do and add a ribbed border to the neckline in the front to make it a cardigan. So it is a kimono style right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to do long sleeves or short sleeves. It's kind of a mystery top to me. So my last video here, I believe I put that one up already. I showed how to do the repeat. And the repeat, it starts, where is it on my screen? Okay, starts right here. Did a solid row of double crochet fillet, double crochet, bean stitch fillet, double crochet, the shell stitch row, the leveling up row where it's got double crochets, chain one, single crochet into the shell. Did that row, and then a solid double crochet, the bean stitch again, and then that, let's see, that is where the row repeat stops right there. So mine, I did 6 repeats of the row pattern, the stitch pattern. I did 6, and then I went and did an additional row 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have done 4 panels like that, and I did the back in 2 separate panels. If you had a longer color strands, you could get by with doing 1 piece across for the back, but I didn't want to mess up the way that the colors fall of this Lion Brand Ferris wheel, because it's just so beautiful. I didn't want to get it choppy to go all the way across the back. So there's 2 panels for the back, 2 for the front. I have not determined how I'm going to handle these ends. I tried some Aleene's, I think it is, fabric glue right here on that knot. It's a little tough. I think with washing and stuff, it'll stiffen up some, but I am still going to bury that tail. But I'm going to probably do more of what my daughter does with weaving. She weaves her tail in, places a knot, and then weaves it again and places a knot. So I'm going to be knotting it because I did a whole sampler of many of their colors in the Lion Brand Ferris wheel, and woven all my tails back and forth on themselves, and through all the stitches and everything, long tails, like 10 inches long, and it's still, I have tails that have popped out. The whole tail has popped out. So they slipped, it's very slippery, and it comes out. So just so you know, be aware of that, and we'll go over that later on in the project. When it gets time to bury some tails, we will bury those, place a knot, bury it again, place another knot, and then go back on itself one more time. So those knots will help to anchor it and not have to use any glue, because I really don't, I mean, I can live with this, and I know it's going to soften up with time. You know, it's bendable right there, but I can feel that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want it to be itchy or scratchy. So I do not recommend trying the fabric glue method on those knots. So we've got the 4 pieces, and if your 4 are done, the direction is up when the shells are up. So you want to make sure you got 2 pieces. There's no real front or back side to the pieces, but you want to be sure that you got them both going the same direction and not turn it. If you want it upside down, do it upside down, but I want my shells pointing up. So I'm going to make sure I have 2 of them, no right side or wrong side to hold together, but just make sure that both your shells are going the same direction. Okay, so I stopped with a double crochet row, and that's what I recommend, is that you stop after a double crochet row. So somewhere along the line, when it gets close to how long you want your piece, and it falls on your hip, your waist, your thigh, wherever, however long you want it, just be sure that you stop after a double crochet row, or add another double crochet row in there somewhere. So I got my H-hook that I gave a Manny to. Put some Fimo clay on. Party on the hook. Party on the hook. Love it. Fimo clay, and then lots of polish. Lots of fingernail polish with the ombre effect. And I got my little H on the back, on the button, on the button bottom. So I'm going to pause this and grab my yarn and grab a sip of my coffee. And then we're going to, with this piece, I want to do a mattress stitch join for the shoulders. I feel like that would be the least bulky of a seam. It does take a little bit more time, a little fidgety, but you get a nice join, nice seam look to it, and it's not going to be a noticeable seam. It's invisible. So we're going to be working into these V's, the top V's of the row, and pick up the little thread that's in there. Not sure what I did with my yarn needle. Okay, here we go. Oops, I dropped something. We're going to be working into right here and picking that up right there on both sides and going back and forth between the two pieces. So we're going to join two rectangles, and then we're going to take and do the same to the other side. And also, after that, we'll be taking the two long, once you got 2 and 2 put together, and two over here and 2 over there, we're going to take and join up the back seam, so that 2 pieces, and you might want to go ahead before you determine which one's your back, determine which are your back panels. And I matched mine up when I started. I started on the same color run on all my pieces, so they all match up. I'm not that finicky, but because this piece has two rectangles on the back, I didn't want it to be, sorry, I had my needle in my mouth. I didn't want it to be too choppy, but I wanted those to line up fairly well. And you can see I have brown shells here, brown shells there. Started with the magenta, and bean stitches are pink. It matches up pretty well. So this is where we're going to do the slip stitch, probably chain 1 or chain 2, and go into the rows here, the ends of the rows, and do slip stitches. I feel like that's the best way to handle the side edges of rows, especially in this instance. So, we might stitch into the base of this double crochet chain right here, and then stitch into that. So do a chain or 2, just play with your tension. You don't want your tension tight on your seams. It will ride up and be funny in the middle and kind of be on your back like that. So after we get off, 2 and 2 rectangles together, 2 and 2 rectangles here, then we're going to go ahead and join up that piece. And after that, we're going to determine, I like to go about 3/4 of the way up the panels to join the back. So this is where your shoulders are going to be. I like to leave about this much here open, but we'll see. I may change my mind, but I like to leave about that much open for your neck, because you want more coverage on your bust on the front. So this creates, your neck opening, and I just picture it on, and your shoulders right here, but to have a neck opening right about there. And then later on we'll go around and we'll do some ribbing. But the ribbing is going to be going the same direction as your stripes, but it'll be longer color runs because it's not going to be that wide. And we're going to join the ribbing edge to the front and the neck in this direction and join it as we go. So we're not going to be making a strip and sewing it onto here. It's going to be joined as we go. All right, So I'm going to pause here finally and get a drink, and I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. I went ahead and took the time while I took a little break to do a drawing of this piece thus far and where we're going with it for now. This is the Wild Violets cardigan. We have 4 panels, as I said before. We got a front panel, a back panel right here between those dotted lines. There's 2 back panels, and then there is your other front panel. So there's no right or wrong side right now. We're going to do these seams right here. That's back, this front. This dash line here is where we're going to sew up the back panel, and then leave part of this open for the neck. And later we'll address that and make that nice rounded edge there. So this seam here, we're going to work on a seam. So I've got 2 pieces all ready to go. Oh, and here the ribbing is horizontally striped, joined as you go method. And that's the ribbing, that skinny little ribbon right there. Don't know if that's it's definitely not to scale. I like to do my ribbing at least edging at least 2 inches wide, sometimes as wide as 4 inches. So we'll just see where we go with that. And you can always adjust yours if you like. Now, on one of my panels at the end, I had drawn through a loop and pulled up a loop and left a long strand here to sew this seam up. So I do recommend you do that if you forgot or whatever. Don't worry about it. Just grab a new thread and you can bury an extra tail later on. So there's 2 here. I did it on both of them. And these 2 knots here both have glue on them. So I'm going to put these to the outer edge, this corner as opposed to this corner. This one's going to be my neck side. So this is going to be my arm side. All right, we're going to ignore that other tail. We can actually, you know what, I'm going to flip it. There's no right or wrong side right now. So I'm going to flip that. So I got that other one. I don't know, it's still there up by the neck. Sorry, going back. Rewind. I don't edit my videos. I should really think about that first. So we're gonna go in through this first stitch through both top pieces of the V of the top of that double crochet, just to get started here and join these 2 first stitches together. Okay. And so now that's secured. We're going to go ahead in between those 2 V's. See if I can get this a little closer, if it'll focus for you. No. Just insert your hook in between those two legs of the V, and you'll find a thread right there. Pull through that. Mine's dragging because of that stinking glue. Never, never, never again. Never, never, never. Don't pull it too tight. You know, about the same tension that you crochet. You just don't want any hanging threads between there. And I am hanging right here. You see that? That space there. We don't want that space. So I'm going to give it a little bit more of a tug. And we're going to go into the first one that we can meet up with right here that's open. Same right there. And you can go, I like to hold them like this between my 2 fingers like that, so that it kind of pushes up that V edge some for me. And then see how I have my thumb and my fingers placed? So you can go from side to side. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch same way. And we're just basically zigzagging. Once we get maybe 5 to 10 stitches over, I'm going to give that a tug, because right now it's leaving a little bit of a space, and it's okay at this point. This is not a super strong yarn since it's single ply. You don't want to get too far down the road before you draw that like a drawstring and tighten it up. I just like to make sure my first stitch is edge to edge. Just because I don't, especially if you're starting with a new thread, you wouldn't want to give this a tug and then pull that all the way out. So that kind of anchors it a bit to have it close together itself. So just keep going from one V to the other. And this is called the mattress stitch, I believe. I learned this when I was in my knitting days. You know, it's funny. The knitting, it served its purpose. I don't knit a whole lot now. I think I knit last time was last year, maybe the fall before that. And I used to make a lot of shawls because all the projects to wear with knitting took me so long. And crochet, you can make something wearable. And with all these nice DK weights we have now, you know, if you're plus size, you can make something wearable in less time. And if you make it lacy, it's really, they say crochet uses up 30% more yarn, but that's if it's solid. If it's lace and you're stitching loosely or using a bigger needle than it calls for, a bigger hook, then it's really doesn't use more yarn. So that's about how far I've gotten, about 2 inches. And I'm going to give this a tug right here, just slowly, because you don't want to break your single ply yarn. And just watch toward the beginning there. You want that all pulled up. And if it gets a little tighter here, because it does get tighter here first than it does there. But that's all. They're joined together now. And it is really a nice seam there. See the other side? Same thing. So you're just really joining those top sections of the stitch together. So let's go back here and we'll do a little bit more. Last one I did was on this front piece, and now we're going to go into the back again. So try not to skip any of your little V's. You will get some gaps if you do that. If they get a little misaligned, like maybe you're not right across from that one and you go over here, not a huge deal, because these stitches aren't very big. They're not very wide. It's just an H hook I've been using. This seam does go a lot faster the better you get at it. And just keep moving your fingers down and readjusting as needed. You don't have to hold it exactly like I do, but I do recommend that you hold them both if you're able to. Just because you don't have to drop and pick up, and your seams are going to stay more lined. The two sides will stay more aligned with each other if you hold them both at the same time. So we're kind of just zippering on down. And holding it like this helps too, because you're picking down to find that thread. If you were holding it this way, you're going to be picking at the side or come through the other side, and it's just kind of sloppy. If you're looking from a top view, you can identify where that thread is so much easier. See, it's that quick. Y'all, I can't wait for spring. I don't know about you, but I don't like winter. Winter brings me down, like the cloudiness and everything. And although it's not been a real harsh winter here in Indiana this year, we heard it was supposed to be, but I know we're not through winter yet. It's been pretty kind on us. It's been pretty kind. A lot of rain, a lot of cloudiness. And one year, I remember telling my ex, I was crying a little bit in the car. We were going down the road, just me and him, heading toward the store. Okay, now we've gotten a couple inches further down again, so we're going to give that a tug. Do it nice and slow. Crank up on your thread as you pull. Get a little closer to your project. Don't hold up right here. You hold there and you're going to mess up your thread. And just look back to where it was tighter before, and then you'll see when you pull up that extra slack that you're there. Okay, take a little peek at it if you need to. But that winter was so cloudy and dreary and rainy, and we were in the car heading to the store, and my ex looks over at me because I was a little teared up and starting to cry. And we were driving through this really pretty area. On a nice day, it's really pretty and nice country road and curvy and all that and tree lined, and, you know, where the big old trees kind of go over the road, you know, and kind of makes a tunnel. So it's really cool. But he looked at me. He's like, Jen, what's wrong? And I said, I hate winter. And I do. I hate winter. Fall is my favorite season. Spring's my second favorite. I'm not big on summer, but at least we're blessed enough these days, this technological age we're in, that we have air conditioning, or at least most of us. At least it's an option. Definitely have fans. And I'll tell you, I've always kind of romanticized like the Civil War era. You know, that kind of time frame, the styles and the dresses and all the pretty stuff the women wore, you know, they were just so feminine, and I've always romanticized that, and wished we dressed like that still these days. But I don't know how they did it. I mean, corsets, can you imagine having all that on in the summer? I mean, come on now. And the wigs, you know, a lot of them wore wigs and all that. So, oh boy. Just the thought of putting a corset on makes me cringe. That can actually displace your organs too. We don't want any organ displacement. And I would think it could do some damage if you wore it too tight all the time. I know there's some people that still do corseting. Okay, so we made it another couple inches or so. I'm going to give it a tug. And not too tight. You don't want it to be a tight seam. You want it to have a little bit of give. We don't want to cinch it. So that's that. You're going to keep going. I got a little ways to go. And I'm going slow because I'm talking. But, you know, you're going to get to the end. And when you get to the end, just go ahead and go through the last 2 stitches. And do a knot around your needle like this. Wrap it a couple times and then pull through that knot and tighten up your knot, and then you're going to have that tail to bury in. So go ahead and do 2 rectangles, and then you're going to go ahead and join your other 2 rectangles. All right, I'm going to pause here. Okay, so I'm at the end of the seam, and look what I did here. So I didn't do it exactly perfect. It looks like there's 2 V stitches, and then the last one, the top of the chain there to go through. So that's 3. 1, 2, 3. And over here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cinch this a little bit with my fingers. And I've made a match up right there. I'm just going to go ahead and take a stitch right there across from my back piece. And make it line up. Make it work. And then go back into my back. And go back into the front. And I'm still a little bit big over here. So what I'm going to do is I just did that front stitch. Oops, I'm off screen. I just did the front stitch. I'm going to go ahead and pick up another V. Pick up between that V on the next one. So it gives it a little bit of a cinch, and that way the edges will be lined up. If your edges are a little bit off, it's not going to matter. It'll all come out in the wash, but you don't want it to be like an inch off, you know. That would like really look bad. So I just went through the back stitch, and I'm going to go through the front one more time just to secure it and grab between 2 right there. I went under both of the top of the V. So because this yarn is slippery, I'm going back against that one again. And I'm going to go ahead and make a knot right here. Try to get to a good amount. Leaving your needle in between there and go around your needle twice. And hold your fingers lightly against that knot until you can snug it up against there really good. And give it a good tug. Okay, so we'll deal with that end later. It can be buried in kind of like this, woven back and forth. Just go through the top too. Don't go all the way to the back. See, you don't see any needle back there showing. We're just riding up against the top of that stitch. Go ahead and finish this tail up so you can see how to do it, so you can do the next one just like it. So I'm recording this video, and I realize the first video I did of the stitched pattern tutorial for the start of this cardigan was on my old phone. Okay, so I've gone a couple inches. I'm going to go back underneath this loop here, so it's circled back on itself, and I'm going to go around my needle twice and do a knot again, just like we did at the end, and hold my needle, hold that wrap onto the needle, and you can use your finger now to cinch it up against there really well. And then I'm going to go back against itself again. Go back where we came from. So I just realized I had recorded the stitch tutorial on how to do the stitch repeat for this piece, or whatever piece you want to use this stitch pattern for. And that was on my old phone, and it cut me off. I think that was the night that I got interrupted. Like it stopped recording on me like 4 times, and then I had a phone call come in. So then I was just like giving up. I'm like, give up, because my phone did not have the adequate storage to keep going on that. So we've reached the end again. I'm just going to go right here very carefully because I'm running out of tail. So I've got to re-record that one. This will actually be the second part of the video series. I went around the needle 3 times that time, sorry. And then just cinch it down with your fingernail or your fingers and seat that knot. If you have enough left, I'm really dangerously low on thread here, but I'm going to go ahead and bury the tail once more. So we've knotted it here, we went through, wove it through, knotted it there, went back on itself, knotted it again. And I'm just going to get rid of the extra little bit of this tail. And this time I'm going to kind of fish weave it in there. Just a little bit there, and pull it through and snip it off. I think that that is going to hold very well. I used my daughter Emily's method. Thank you, Emily, helping Mama out. She's a weaver. She said, do this, Mom. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So it was so frustrating. My blanket tails are still hanging out. So this one is not going to sew anything closed. So that one I ended with on the other one can be woven in as well. At this point, I have 2 more rectangles to join together. I'm not going to do this at this time. What I want to do is just show you how to start stitching up your back 2 panels, and then I'll unravel this later. And make sure your shells are going the same direction. So both my shells are going up that way, and I'm a lefty, so I'm going to hold these 2 pieces together, and I'm going to flip it around. This is just a trial for me here, because I'm not going to leave it together without my other 2 panels sewn up. Just doing this for you. And I'm going to use some contrasting thread right now, just so that you can see the stitches better. So I'll pause here. Okay, so we are working on the back 2 panels for seaming up. When you get your shoulders seamed together, you're going to do your back 2 panels, and I've chosen some very red yarn to work with. So you can either slip stitch join to one of the panel corners, or you can go ahead and do your slip stitch. I'm just going to go ahead and do mine. And I'm just going to go ahead and start with a slip stitch the 2 corners together. So go into the top or the bottom of your chain here that you started with. This would have been the start of your panel. This looks like it is, yeah, it's from the chain row. This was when we started the first row. So I've gone through both corners there, and I went under 2 strands on both of those, just so that it's good and a good firm start here. So I slip stitch through both of those together. I'm going to pull that knot tight. It's taut, not taunt. I said taunt earlier, like you're taunting me. So I've done that and pulled it taut, and I'm going to go and yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through again. Now remember, on the ends, I was just doing a chain 2 at the ends. I did not do a chain 3 on this one. So I'm just going to go into the top of that double crochet here with two of the strands are there. And now I'm going to go into the same place back here on that top of that first row and do a slip stitch. Chain 2. Hold it the same tension. This is a worsted weight that I'm using for an example so you can see it better, but hold it the same tension. And since I did chain 2s on my ends, that's what I'm doing right now. So we can go into the top of this one right here, and then the same thing, top of that one. As long as you're lining up your rows, that's the main thing. And then I'm going to chain 2 again. Go into the top of that stitch. Go into the top of the other. Yeah, I know I may come across as like I'm a perfectionist or everything I do is perfect, and it's no, it's not. We're all flawed. Everything we make is flawed, and perfect is boring anyway. So this is a little harder to see, the brown, but it's right here, the top of that double crochet. And if you fall into the base of the next one, that's fine too. Chain 2. If you did chain 3s to stand as your double crochets at the end of your rows, then go ahead and do chain 3s now so that your tension of your joining matches up. That's what we're going for, is the same tension. Now this is the shell row, and the shell rows started and ended with a single crochet and then the shell stitch. So since you start with a single crochet, count that one. So I'm going to count that as 1, and then my chain 2 is right here. So I'm going to chain 3 for that one, because I'm not going to go into the base of the shell row. Just go to the top of the compensating row, then chain 2. So you get the idea. And I would leave probably anywhere between 6 to 8 inches at the top for your neck opening. So here's our shoulder seam. Right here. When you get up here, maybe 5 to 6 inches right there. So you can decide that, and you can also stop and, you know, take a bunch of slack off of your yarn and try it on, you know, open it up after you get up this far, you know, and it's easy to undo it. If you decided that's too far up for the back of your neck, like you don't want it up to your neck. You want to leave some space, because we're going to put some ribbing on there. At least I am. If you're going to close both your front and your back, you don't want it to be like way down your back. That would look weird. So if you decide you went too far, you can just pull this and unchain it, unstitch, just frog back a little bit. Sorry, I'm shaking the gooseneck again. So you can see, you know, there's a little bit of space there, and this red yarn is very much going to show through, but it's just a sample. And the yarns, you will see a little fleck of color here or there. So I do try to choose one of the medium values in the color changing yarn to stitch this up, because of that little dash look. It won't be this noticeable, but it will be if like I use the deep purple or this dark blue down here you know, and it doesn't change color that fast that it's going to be changing as rapidly as this. So I will probably choose a section that is in the medium range, which would be, you know, this beige color here. So that way it's not too stark of a contrast here or there. It's somewhere in the middle. So I'll probably use, you know, the lighter flecky beige right there to stitch mine up. And if it gets to where it's turning too dark, as I get closer to the neck, I'll just pull it and start a new piece. Tie a new piece of that same colorway on. And that's why I hang on to the ends of these little balls here. See there? I got it. That one's ready to go. I can just take a little bit off of this and get to that lighter shade there to seam that up. So a lot of times, you know, I'll just save the little ball instead of, you know, and that way I can start my rectangles on the same color section. And then, you know, there's something left that I can use for seaming and joining later. Okay, so that's the end of this section here. As far as I'm going to go with this segment, you're going to go ahead and stitch up your back up to as far as you want it to hit on your neckline. And remember, if you are leaving it open as I am, to leave enough space to work with when you go around and joining your ribbed edge as you go. And that's going to leave enough space. You know, I think I'm going to go probably 3 to 4 inches wide with my ribbing on the front and around the neck. About that much, because I want it to a slower color change than this, and that will make it look more blocky, blocks of color around there. All right, thank you, and I'm going to go film the stitch tutorial for this stitch repeat.